Namaskar, hello and welcome viewers. You're watching the special presentation of Sunset TV, Bills and Insight, your one-stop destination for views, news and analysis of proposed legislations of India that have far-reaching implications and impact your life. I'm your host Kriti Mishra, and today the spotlight is on the Biological Diversity Amendment Bill 2021. The bill amends the Biological Diversity Act of 2002 to simplify compliance requirements for domestic companies. And before the detailed analysis, let's take a look at the highlights of the bill. The bill seeks to give a fillip to Indian system of medicine and facilitate fast tracking of research. Users of codified traditional knowledge and Ayush practitioners will be exempted from sharing benefits with local communities. It also allows for foreign investment in research in biodiversity. So what is biodiversity and why did we need this amendment? Well, biodiversity refers to the variety of life forms that exist on the planet. Human activities on the planet have created challenges for biodiversity, such as loss of habitat, ecological systems, and extinction or threat to extinction for species. A key multilateral treaty to address these concerns is the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity from the year 1992. India ratified these protocols in 2003 and in 2014. In light of India's commitments under CBD, the Biological Diversity Act of 2002 was passed by Parliament. The 2002 Act imposed a heavy compliance burden on Indian medicine practitioners. The amendments seek to decriminalize certain provisions and bring more foreign investment in the chain of biological resources, including research, patent and commercial utilization, without compromising the national interests. And joining us on the program for deeper insights on the bill and its impact, Mr. Prakash Javadekar, former Minister, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. He's also currently the member of the Upper House. In the studio, we have with us Mr. Pradeep Multani, President, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he's also Chairman of Multani Pharmaceuticals Limited. And also joining us through virtual platform, Mr. Abhinash Mohanty, Program Lead, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And joining us in the studio, young and vibrant audience. I welcome all of you on Sunset TV and thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Javadekar, let me begin the program with you. Ayush, medicine, seed industry and research sectors were urging the government to simplify, streamline and reduce the compliance burden to provide for a conducive environment for collaborative research and investments in this sector. In that context, take us through the importance of this bill, sir.
Just the 1 minute background is India, even though I have constraints of space that we have only 2.5% of the world's land mass, and we have tremendous pressure of human as well as cattle population, still we have 8% of world's biodiversity. So this speaks about India's commitment to growth of biodiversity. And at the same time, it is also the wild presence of wildlife also shows that our biodiversity is robust. So let us contextualize the discussion. Now, the second context is that there is growing demand for Ayurveda and Indian traditional medicines. Even though allopathy has made tremendous progress, particularly in COVID and many other diseases, people have realized that there is a place for Indian medicine and therefore world over the demand is growing. The issue was you need to comply with the world conditions, and to that end we require more research. And to do the research, there were so many, because you have to experiment, then you have to make research, you need investments. And there are good foreign universities where already research of this kind is going on, so we involve them. But there was such a very lengthy process. और लास्ट वाक्य में बता, और इसलिए दिस इज द बिल फॉर giving that ease of doing not only business but doing research and taking Indian medicines to the world market in a real scientific format. That's the purpose of the bill. And what should not forget is that ease of providing business is not seen. Otherwise, we will be living in hypocrisy. I'll just give one example. Today, we don't allow BT brinjals. The matter is in court. So government has not given any permission. But in kahi bhi, you will get BT brinjals because it is coming from Bangladesh, it is coming from elsewhere. And farmers are already doing wrong. So what we will end up like, I fear, we will end up like how we end up in BT cotton. When 92% of the farmers started using BT cotton, then you have to accept that. So that is what is going to happen. So we must provide for a legitimate course of, a simplified course of doing research, making and taking all precautions. This is not compromising on our stand or worse, Nagoya Protocol or anything.
As he said that we are not compromising on any of our national interests, but talking about another important aspect of the bill, Mr. Mohanty, India is party to the Convention of Biological Diversity and the Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing. Now, the Amendment Bill of 2021 removes the direct role of local bodies and benefit claimers in determining mutually agreed terms. Help us understand what is access and benefit sharing and how does this bill change that?
This bill actually supports in a way in terms of collaboratively bringing together both the UN Convention on climate emissions that we have given as well as the biodiversity convention. So this bill brings it. And Mr. Javadekar has very rightly put it out that it's going to promote research, and the access and benefit sharing is only for those who are Ayush practitioners, not all the practitioners. This is a caveat that the bill provides, and hence we are going to promote the Ayush, which is actually a traditional kind of practice that we had, and we have a huge cultural heritage. That's point number one. Point number two is by not access means you have access to the resources. Benefit sharing is once you have access and you come up with some sort of a product or kind of effect, you need to share that benefit. So that benefit is not going to be shared with the local community. Now here, by not sharing with the local communities, there might be a challenge. It's because the local communities will not try to equip themselves with the traditional knowledge and will not try to share that information with other practitioners. So there might be a siloed approach from the research. So I think this is something which needs to be looked at by the parliamentary committee in terms of looking how we can actually not kind of burn the bridge rather, and we can actually create a whole sort of market, emerging market out of it. And that is what rightly can give us benefit of boosting our economy as well and keeping intact our traditional practices and cultural heritage. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's a fine balance between boosting our economy and also protecting our traditional systems. But Mr. Multani, let's get in an industry perspective here. Certain environmentalists have said that this bill promotes IPR and commercialization of trade for the industry at the expense of conserving our biodiversity. How do you dispel those claims?
You see, let me just mention, I'm also the president of the Indian Ayurveda Association, and our association controls more than 75% of the industry turnover. We as an industry and as a trade body, we are totally committed to the fact that we have to preserve our biological resources, and we are also committed to look after our environment and climate and all these noble causes. While when we look at this, we have to also understand what is the ground reality, what has happened with this Biological Diversity Act, and also with the effect of the Biological Diversity Amendment Bill of 2021. You see, all the goals which have been set are very, very noble. But unfortunately, when it comes down to the ground level, there are tremendous difficulties which industry and trade are facing. You see, at the central level, we know the Honorable Prime Minister is doing his best to promote the Ayush system of medicine. And just like yoga has reached every household, we have 21st June is the International Day of Yoga. Now that has, as Mr. Modi said, that has opened the doors of the world for us, Ayush sector. Now it is the time of the Ayurvedic system to enter all those doors and take our Ayush system to a level which is better than and generates more revenue, more employment than the traditional Chinese system of medicine. However, what is basically there is that when this bill was introduced, it was very, very clear in Parliament, our Honorable Forest and Environment Minister, I think Mr. Prakash Javadekar was itself there.
Yes.
It was clearly said that this is to control exploitation of Indian bioresources by foreigners. However, the ground reality is, Section 3 of the Biological Diversity Act clearly states that only the foreign companies will have to pay ABS fees and all. However, under Section 7, the Indian entities are totally exempted. However, what is happening at the ground level is that the National Biological Authority, National Biodiversity Authority has extended the scope where they are also, I would use the word, targeting the Indian industry. Now, what has happened is that all of us have to pay anywhere between 3 to 5% of our purchase price of raw materials. Now, and apart from that, the process is so cumbersome that whatever the central government is trying to do to promote the system, to have ease of doing business, this is going totally contrary to that. In the previous bill, there was a provision of direct, it was non-cognizable. Now, fortunately, at least now, they are, not having criminal provisions. However, yet, the Indian industry, which is totally exempt under Section 7, is still being targeted that you have to pay a tax. Now, since we are already paying 5% GST, we will only appeal to the government and to this joint parliamentary committee that yes, if you want to collect anything, please, we already have 30-35 departments on us. If you want to, if the aim is only to collect more money as being targeted by the NBA, then increase the GST. Take it to from 5 to 7%, 10% or even 12%, because in the allopathic industry on APIs, the GST is 12%. So do that, but please, for God's sake, don't open another department for us.
All right. So you're making a very important point there. Let me take that to Mr. Javadekar. Mr. Javadekar, how do you assuage the concerns of the industry as Mr. Multani is airing that on our show?
That's a very good suggestion of him and industry that you can increase GST, but don't open another department. This is how Indian industry has suffered for years together because of new inspection bodies, new collection bodies, and bodies which again come and supervise your transactions. That means you have to part money. So that is unfortunately but a true picture. And therefore, we have done away with 25,000 compliances. And let us understand now there is very clarity because more than 2 lakh Gram Panchayats have done their work and created their own biodiversity register. So that is an asset of India. And the access benefit, why it came into effect? It was to that the local communities will then replant. They will plant again, and there will be no dearth of availability of raw material for such medicines. And the traditional things will be taken care of. But actually what is happening on ground is that till today only 135 crore rupees have been accounted for in the axis benefit ratio, out of which 100 crores are only from the trade of red sandals. So it is actually that needs to come. And so one new provision which is very important is a plantation is allowed, and plantation will not be part of that access benefit, because if I plant, it becomes my agriculture. We must create, like agroforestry, we must create this medicinal plant agriculture. If we do that, forestry and agriculture, by planting medicinal plants, growing it commercially, cutting it, selling it, again planting it, because the profit will be the motive, and we will have abundant availability of raw material. That is the way forward.
But Mr. Mohanty, I'd just like to understand that the implementation of CBD and the protocols cannot work in isolation, and thus there must be consummation with other international treaties as well. Therefore, we need integration between these protocols and the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. What's the way ahead for that?
Now we are living in a very uncertain world filled with climate uncertainties. I will just put out some numbers, and how we can connect those numbers to what we are discussing is very important. We found out that by doing some climatological analysis, we found out that 75% of Indian districts are extreme event hotspots to hydromet disasters. And 40% of them are showcasing a swapping trend in terms of traditional drought-prone areas are becoming flood-prone and flood-prone areas are becoming drought-prone. And here comes the catch. 45% of India's landscape has been disrupted. That is what is triggering these extreme events. And now what we are witnessing is our North India and Central India is under the grip of heat waves. Assam is under floods. Our cities, Southern India, cities like Bangalore and Chennai, already we have extreme heavy rainfall. Himachal Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, we have got forest fire events surging up. Now here, biodiversity actually plays a very important role. And India has been a thought leader in terms of stepping up climate actions through International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and in terms of committing to the nationally determined contributions. And India is far ahead in terms of all the nations who have committed to end this. So here, only the environment minister cannot, or the environment ministry rather, cannot use these bills to be implemented. We need to create some sort of mechanism where both the environmental ministry as a nodal ministry, as well as the climate action ministry and the other biogenetic and genetic ministries under science and technology, all of them need to have a cohesive constitutional mandate. Then only they can do it. I'm sure we already have a task force, we have steering committees, but that doesn't have, they just have an advisory role. And we need to let go this advisory goal, come up with a cohesive action plan that is implementable on ground. And it should not be just by policy decision makers or by trade and commerce. Rather, all of us should be part of those conversations so that we can actually highlight in terms of real targets what we want to achieve in terms of having a biodiversity amendment bill in 5 years, what is a short term, which is a midterm and long term goal, and how implementing it, what are the direct benefits, what are the soft benefits, and what are the co-mutual benefits we need to identify and we need to look at. Then only this can become a very practical example.
Yes, Mr. Mohanty. So from your assertion, I can make out we need 3 C's: cohesive, comprehensive, and also coordinated approach. But before I take questions from our audience, Mr. Multani, a quick question. One of the challenges again, that the exemption that would be given to the industry or to Ayush practitioners would lead to biopiracy. What's your take on that?
I would totally like to beg to differ on that. I would like to just say one thing, which is very, very important, because I'll make an appeal to all the members of parliament of the Joint Parliamentary Committee also from this channel. You see, in today's day and date, we've got China sitting on our head, which is a USD 10 trillion economy. India is only USD 2.8 or 2.9 trillion economy. Now, it is important that goal of USD 5 trillion economy is achieved at the very earliest, so that we are able to stand up and become a developed nation. Then apart from that, we are also aware that presently in agriculture, 83% of Indian water is used for that. Our Honorable Prime Minister has set up the Jal Shakti Ministry, where every step has been taken to conserve water. And if, like Mr. Javadekar mentioned, that we have to now and also our mission is to double farmers' income. How do we double the farmers' income? That farmers' income can only be doubled if they shift to medicinal plant cultivation. And the government has set up the National Medicinal Plant Board. This National Medicinal Plant Board does hand-holding of the farmers, where they test their soil, they give them samplings, they tell them how to grow, and definitely even the Indian industry is now in a very big into medicinal plant cultivation.
Right.
We are also having camps where we reach out to the farmers to come forward. So if we say that exempting the Ayush practitioner or even Indian industry, I think basically the Indian industry and our Ayush practitioners, our Ayurveda is a 5,000-year history. We are the conservers and protectors of our traditional knowledge. So we should basically be totally exempt from all this.
Now let's take some questions from our audience. Please go ahead, introduce yourself and speak your mind.
Most of the communities that we speak of, glaringly, they are not mentioned in the PBI, such as the Raikas of Rajasthan and the nomadic pastoralist. So I would like to ask you this question upfront, that if we are missing up on so much of communities that should have been in the list, which are not present in the state board authorities and anywhere, so how do you think we are going to sustain the environment?
All right, Mr. Javadekar, would you like to take that one? He says that we are missing on the communities.
It's a work in progress. If there is such a genuine case where that is not, because already Biodiversity Act is in force for so many years, and it is now for amendment to mitigate based on experience, what has remained as a shortfall, and that to be completed. So there is a parliamentary standing committee. You can also write to it, because they consider, because I don't know the technicality of this entry which you want, but whatever it is, it will definitely be considered by the committee for their recommendations.
My question is that the Biological Diversity Bill talks about codified document, which I feel is a very vague term. How do you define, what do you mean by codified document?
Mr. Multani, would you like to take that
Sure.
one?
You see, codified knowledge is what is happening in today's day and date is that this real wealth of India, that, the Ayush system of medicine is the wealth of India. Now, in today's day and date, what is happening is these so-called developed countries, they are taking out patents on whether it is yoga techniques or whether it is our curcumin or tulsi, haldi, everything they are trying to, patent in their countries. Now, what is basically needed is that we have to prove whenever we go to fight those cases, and whatever is our wealth of knowledge has to be codified somewhere.
Yes.
So that is, I think the government of India is doing an outstanding job, because majority of the herbs and whatever our biological resources are, they are now being codified, so that when we go to defend them, we can't say that it is ours. Just
Right.
like basmati rice, or for example, England says Scotch is ours. We need documentary proof. So Indian government is doing a fantastic job in codifying all that.
What is codified will be decided and explained fully in rules, which
Right.
will be made within 6 months of passing a bill. So bill doesn't contain every word. Bill gives the direction, and then the rules are made, which also again go to the parliament scrutiny through subordinate legislation committee.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for that clarification. Let's take the last question now.
The bill has introduced a new way of offence resolution from open court system to inquiry and governmental intervention. What would be the ramifications of that proposition?
Mr. Mohanty, that question is for you.
All right. I think first and foremost is I will give two sides of the coin. First and foremost is this will first track some of the queries and the concerns which have been raised, and it can be taken forward by corrective kind of governance mechanisms in terms of solving the issues. That's point number one. Point number two is many of these issues might just not need to be under honorable court's interventions. That can be ramified and that can be eased out. But second is, while you have some of these precursors, there might be a challenge that the local communities might have more access to in terms of spreading their concerns, and the communities can actually express themselves. So these are two of the benefits that's going to happen by this provision. One of the siloed or the blind spot in terms of not having that outlaid rightly is that, and probably what Mr. Javadekar has just laid out, that bills are just the direction providers. We are going to lay out, have more details in 6 months from now. So we should have a clear watch and watch out for what exactly is going to come in terms of if those issues are not well addressed by the functionaries, then what are we going to do, or what are the concerned stakeholders are going to do? That is a gray area, I think, and that needs to be answered. And 6 months from now, I think this is something what we can actually look forward to.
Absolutely. And I'm completely out of time on the show now. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Javadekar, Mr. Mohanty and Mr. Multani. Next time, we'll return with incisive analysis of another important bill. Till then, take care and stay tuned to Sunset TV. Goodbye.